Fantastic.
Hello, Sheikh.
Hello, how are you?
We are excellent. How are you doing today?
Doing very well. Thank you very much for having me this morning. It's great to be part of the Asbiro experience this morning. I don't know what the weather's like where you are, but it's a bit cloudy and a bit rainy up here up north in just outside of Beverly. So yeah, looking forward to talking to the students and associates and everyone associated with Asbiro. It's a pleasure and an honor to be asked to do this. So thank you very much for having me today.
It's our pleasure. It's our pleasure to having you today.
So I was, is Bob on the air? Because this was going to be a question and answer format where Bob was going to give me some of the main challenges Asbiro people are having with their CVs, and I could deal with each one specifically.
Yes, Bob is with us here.
Hi there, Sheikh.
Good morning, Bob. How are you, sir?
I'm very good. I'm all ready to go out to Los Angeles, so I'm in like a pretty good space. First of all, my thank you for putting some of your very valuable time on a Sunday aside. This today is a bit of a pilot. I've got a lot of feedback, Sheikh, about the construction of a CV, and that impacts whether you're employed or you're self-employed, because how you construct your CV communicates your value, and your value communicates what you can charge or what jobs you can apply to. And generally speaking, people are quite poor at this. They tend to communicate a shopping list of achievements, and accidentally believe that people can be bothered to read through this shopping list of achievements.
Absolutely.
And so my first thing to you, could you share 3 outstanding features that you think a CV should communicate? If you were going to just choose 3 things, Sheikh, that a CV needs to communicate, what would those 3 things be?
Okay. Obviously, there's quite a few sections to a CV. There's usually about 6 sections. If you want me to highlight the main 3 sections, happy to do that. The first thing that a recruiter, an employer, a potential client will see on your CV, whether that's a paper CV, whether that's your LinkedIn profile you're using as a way to communicate who you are and what you do, the first thing they're going to look at is your profile. Now, your profile is basically a short, concise, but powerful paragraph to tell people who you are, what you do, what your strengths are, what you can offer them. That's probably the biggest most important thing on your CV. The best way to look at it is, if you go to a bookshop, if you like to read, and you might pick up a novel, you're going to read the back of the novel, where there's going to be a little paragraph about what the novel's about. There might be something there about the author, but the main thing is like, that sounds interesting. I think I'll buy that. If you were buying a DVD that you were unsure of, again, you would read the back, and that's the best way to look at your profile. Your profile is a little bit of information about who you are. Now, I just want to stress, it's a little bit of information. You have to remember, as Bob, you mentioned earlier, there are 2 kinds of CVs. There's the shopping list CV. This is who I am. This is where I worked. This is where I did. Great. And then there's the marketing CV, the CV that's going to actually make you stand out. The CV that's written for a specific role or a specific job, or written and tailored to your exact qualifications. And that's what we want to do. You want to put stuff on there that's going to make someone go, this guy or this lady sounds really interesting. I need to interview them, because the little blurb I'm getting here, it's the hook. Yeah, it's yeah, I like that. I like the sound of this person. I need to get them in and interview them, and just maybe see what they're like in real life. Maybe just confirm some of the things that they're saying to me. Maybe I can ask them to bring some evidence of that. But the most important thing is your profile. Yeah, and your profile, just going to stress, it just needs to be a short paragraph. Don't A lot of people write a profile and it's half a page of A4, and recruiters don't have time to read half a page of A4 just for a profile. They're going to glance at it and they're just going to go, too much information, I'll move on to the next person. What a lot of people forget is that on average, a recruiter, a HR person, spends 7 seconds scanning a CV. So you've got 7 seconds to put the right keywords in there, to use the right tone, and to basically be getting your message across, to be a reflection of the job that you're applying for. That's the first one, Bob, the profile. The second most important thing on there are your key skills, or your skills and achievement. It's also known as a skills and achievement section. It can also be known as a key skills. This is where you're saying to them, these are the things that I'm good at. Yeah. And what a lot of people tend to put on there is IT literate. In today's day and age, you have to be IT literate. When I was younger, and Bob, when you were younger, things were kept on paper files, things were kept in filing cabinets, and computers were the size of photocopiers. And today, just saying you're IT literate isn't enough. It isn't enough. Other things people put on there are punctuality. Again, it's a prerequisite of any job. Hardworking, again, prerequisite of any job. Your key skills should be skills that you have which can add value to that potential employer, that potential recruiter, that potential business contact that you may be starting a relationship with. The best way to look at it is look at the job that you're applying for, and look at the essentials in that job description. And if you have those essentials, put them into your key skills. You don't need to have 10 versions of your CV. What you need to have is one good version that's tweakable. Yeah. So on one of them, one of your key skills might be flexibility, but the employer may be looking for someone who has excellent problem solving skills. So you could take the flexibility out and put the problem solving in there. So, don't think, oh God, I have to write another CV. You don't need to write another CV. You just need to make your CV interchangeable. Think of it as a human being. If you were going to a wedding, you would dress one particular way. The essence, the person is the same behind the outfit. If you were going to a funeral, you would dress a particular way. If you were going to a party, you would dress a particular way. One size never fits all on a CV. So make sure your key skills are a reflection of the skills that that person is looking for. Now, finally, the most important thing I would say on a CV is your interest section. People do business with people they like, whether that's in sales, and it's also the same in employment. In a previous life, I used to be a chef, believe it or not, and I kind of reached the end of my tether with running around like a blue-ass fly in a hot kitchen, not getting any recognition. Was quite bored and I wanted a change. And I took my CV to a recruiter many years ago. This was about 1998. And I said, look, I work in a kitchen, but I'm very, very flexible, very happy to do anything that you give me. Ideally, I'd like an office job. I'd like something 9 to 5. Now, she rang me up a few months later and she said, there's an insurance company recruiting who sells car insurance. And I was like, look, I don't even drive. I have a bus pass. I know nothing about cars. I know nothing about insurance. She went, don't worry. They'll train you. They'll teach you the basic skills. You just need to be able to speak in a professional manner and sell their products on the telephone. Okay, I'll give it a go. It's something different. So they sent my CV. I was asked to come in for an interview. And whilst I was waiting for the interview, they asked me to fill out one of their application forms. Luckily, I took a copy of my CV with me. There's another thing. Always take your CV with you, any business meeting you're going to. So I filled out the application form with the reflection of everything that was on my CV. Now, in my interest and hobby section, I don't know if you can see behind me, there's a shelf here. Yeah, it's full of vinyl records. And I used to be a DJ also part-time. So I put in my interest and hobby section. I have a passion for music. I play at various clubs in and around Leeds. Now, the lady that was interviewing me, she was glancing my application form. This was after we'd said, hello, how are you doing? And she says, oh my God, you DJ. And I was like, well, I dabble. And I'm not joking, for the next 45 minutes, we talked about nothing but music and clubbing. And that's how my interview went. She found a hook that interested her. I could converse to her about that. And lo and behold, I got the job. Now, a lot of people say to me, well, why do I need to put an interest and hobby section in there? And that is a perfect example. The person interviewing you or the person you're potentially doing business with may have something. You may have a common thread. You may have a commonality. In my instance, it was music, it was clubbing. And that led to a very rewarding and long career with a prestigious insurance company.
Can I just give you some feedback, Sheikh? Because this is very much linked to building the network. Because essentially, the three things that you're talking about are how people connect. So the first thing when you're talking about your profile, it's just as it has to be succinct when you're going for a job. When you meet someone for the first time, it also has to be just as succinct, because you've got a bit longer than 7 seconds, but I don't think you've got longer than, say, 60 seconds before someone's thinking, oh my God, or thank goodness we're speaking. It's the same set of skills, I think.
Absolutely. You need to be who you are on paper, but it needs to be, it just needs to say, it needs to jump out at people. A lot of people I've met in the past who send me the CV, then I speak to them and it's like, this isn't the person that I had the picture in my head of. So yeah, it is very important, Bob, that you don't just put power words in there. You don't just put stuff in there that sounds great. Oh, I just thought I'd put that in because it sounded cool. Well, you know, yeah, it does sound cool, but you kind of have to, you know, be that person and prove you are who you're saying you are.
And the second thing, when you're talking about a skills overview, it's the same thing again when you're networking, either for work or for a job, or if you're selling, because sharing with people, you know, you've put down some good stuff like IT literate, punctuality, hardworking. You're right, those are prerequisites. And it's the same in networking events when people say they're competitively priced. It's the same currency. Well, of course, if you are in business, you're competitively priced. So I think that, again, with that heading, your skills overview has to be so direct, so absolutely relevant to the person listening.
Yeah.
You've maybe got 2 bullet points to attract their attention, the same as a networking event.
Absolutely. At a networking event, you know, like you said, Bob, you need to get that hook in with that person that you're speaking to. And if you're just telling them generic stuff, they're going to be listening to you, but they're not going to, they'll be hearing you, they won't be listening to you. You know, some CVs I come across, people have sometimes 8 bullet points, and it's like a lottery. I'll put so many bullet points that maybe one of these might say something to that potential person. And again, at a networking event, you can, when someone says, so who are you? What do you do? Again, if you just telling them generic stuff that the guy potentially stood next to you or the lady stood to the other side of you can tell them, then it's the same thing. They'll hear you, but they won't be listening to you.
And the one other thing that I think is really crucial with the CV and also with networking, this concept that one size fits all. And I thought the analogy of you dress differently for a party than you would for a funeral, than you would if you were working in a bank. I think just as your CV needs kind of multiple identities, that when you meet people for the first time, you have to not mislead them, but use the identity that's the most appropriate for connecting with that person.
Absolutely, absolutely. I met somebody who sent me 6 CVs, and you know, when I looked at their LinkedIn profile, it was just generic stuff. And you do need to make sure that if you're networking for IT, that you know your networking is about IT. Look at the people. The thing is, it's not all about. You know, it goes back to my third point, which is you know, your interests and hobbies. And who you are as a person. If you're at a networking event and you see someone who looks completely bored, break the ice in a different way. You know, one of the things that I teach my clients when they say, oh, when I'm at an interview, what kind of questions should I ask? And I always say it's always good to ask people questions about themselves. It doesn't necessarily have to be about their job. It doesn't necessarily have to be about their product. It doesn't necessarily have to be about what they're looking for. Just talk to them. People like talking about themselves. It's built into us. And if you're at a networking event where, you know, most people are there to sell themselves, just talk to them about who they are. I've made many connections. I've networked with many people where I've just, how are you today? How's it going? How many hands have you shaken today? So how many of these networking events have you got planned for the next month? And I might talk to them for 20 minutes. And at the end of that 20 minutes, they then may ask me, do you have a card? What is it that you do? Because it's not about, look, oh, I'm Sheikh, I'm an IT expert. I can fix anything in IT. I can do anything in IT. Well, of course, every IT person is going to say that. But it goes back to my original point where people do business, or people give jobs to people that they like, people that they have a common factor, a connection with that person. I really like that guy. He made me feel human. He made me feel warm. He made me laugh. Laughter is always a good one. So yeah, you do need to be yourself, but you do need to think of every aspect as a sales opportunity. But look at your audience. You know, I went to a comedy show yesterday, and there were times where the comedian made some jokes that weren't right for that audience, but he was like, ooh, okay, maybe that was a little bit too below the belt. I'll try something else. And it's the same kind of concept.
All right, I appreciate that. I'd like to talk a little bit more about CV structure, because the one thing we're trying to share with people engaged in the program is how to communicate their value, how to communicate your value. So how to communicate your value, whether at a networking group, whether in front of a client, whether in front of a center of influence, or whether you're putting yourself forward for a job. Communicating your value, it's all cut from the same fabric, although you may be shooting that information through different vehicles. So in terms of a CV, could you give us an overview of how, you know, what are the best techniques for communicating your value?
I think the best way to communicate, it's like you said, it's all cut from the same cloth. The best way to communicate that is, again, if it's on a CV, you're not going to have a lot of time, but having consistency in every aspect of your CV. You'll have a profile, you'll have a key skills section, you'll have your employment section or your experience section. You can have your educational section and also your interest section, and whatever your value may be, that needs to come across in every section, in every part of that CV. For instance, if customer service is your value, or, you know, making sure your clients get the right care that they need, then that needs to come across in the tone. It also needs to come across in your description. So let's say you were working with a client, something there you might want to add on there is, met all the requirements of the client, paying particular attention to detail, never compromising on quality or care. In your interest section, you may do some voluntary work in your community. You may do some voluntary work, you know, outside of your community, but put that in there. You know, when we talk about a recruiter looking at a CV for 6 seconds, what we mean is that recruiter may get a pile of 100 CVs, and he's going to scan through those 100 in 6 seconds each. He's going to look for particular points. That 100 pile of 100 might now turn into 25. Once he's got the 25, that's where he'll spend a little bit longer reading the CV and making his decisions as to who to employ or who to interview. So whatever your value is, just make sure that it comes across in every section of your CV, as opposed to just covering that topic once, saying it once, and then moving on to the next section.
Okay, here's something. I know you've had tremendous success in coaching people with their CVs, and tremendous success in writing CVs for people that have delivered results. Could you give us 5 or 6 things that are the things to avoid doing? 5 or 6 things that are the things to avoid doing. I mean, it's probably a lot more than 5 or 6. But if you could just share that with us, that would be really kind.
Yeah, okay. The first thing I would say is first person or third person. What we mean by that is, does your CV start with I can, I have, I am? Okay, that's first person. Third person would be an. So, for instance, your first person CV might read, I am a hardworking. Excuse me, one moment. The phone's ringing.
Yeah, that's cool. Never a dull moment.
Hey, this is the beauty of live TV, hey? So yeah, is your CV going to be in first person or third person? So first person would read, I am a self-motivated individual who strives to achieve and maintain a high standard of performance. I can, I will, I have. The third person CV would read, a self-motivated individual who strives to achieve and maintain a high standard in performance, is capable of, so to speak. So first rule I would say, always put it in third person, because if your CV starts with I, it's going to have I all the way through it. Every time you use an I, it's a stone wall. There's no flow. And if someone's reading a first person CV, they're going to get bored really, really quickly, and they'll move on to the other one. So
can I just for a second? Can I stop you just for a second?
Yeah, sure.
This I can't speak for the audience, but this is new information to me. And last week, as you know, I run a sales distribution channel.
Yeah.
And we have about 60 CVs, and I reckon, Sheikh, nearly every single CV started off with I. Now, bear in mind, those are Polish folk translating into English. That's a really interesting point of information. I cannot think of one CV that I saw that started off Shemek or Jan Kowalski, who is who didn't start in that third person genre.
Yeah, but the best way to look at it is, for instance, if I wrote a CV and I was sending it to you, Bob, to be part of the Asbiro, to be an Asbiro principal, and I wrote it in first person, when you're reading it, you're not me. So the I makes no sense.
Yeah.
The best way I put it to my clients is, I is not you. So why should it be? It's a marketing tool. The person reading it should just be reading about that person. And again, the eyes are just stone walls. If you look at most people's profiles, they'll have about up to 10 eyes in their profile, and that's just basically 10 sentences that all start with I. You take the I out, it'll have flow. If it has flow, it's good to read. It's nice to read. It makes that person want to read it because it's like, this is different. And this is interesting, and it's not boring, because every time I finish a sentence, I get another I. The only time to use I's in a CV is when in your interest and hobby section. That's the only time I turn the CV from third person into first person, because initially you're selling to them who you are in a professional capacity, who you are in a working capacity. But then when you're talking about what you do in your spare time, I go back to first person, because it makes it sound more human when it's in the first person. That's the only time I turn a CV. First person is in the last section.
Okay, can I just touch on this again? Because I can't speak for the group, but I think I'm safe to say I'm a lot older than the group. I've never heard this before, and I must have attended, I don't know how many things to do with recruitment, and that's really cool. So here's another thing. Do you think then that this third person style of communicating your value should be on your LinkedIn profile as well?
Not on a LinkedIn profile, as such as you are talking about yourself. It's a little bit different on LinkedIn. What I would do on LinkedIn, as I have on mine, my profile on LinkedIn is written in first person, but then my job descriptions are written in third person.
Okay, it's really cool because I think generally speaking, and I'm not having the privilege of being Polish, there does seem to be a lot of first person communication, and I just think it's something for people to be aware of.
Yeah, I think what's happened is I think the CVs from Poland have got a little bit lost in translation when they're being used here in the UK. A lot of Polish CVs that I come across, or CVs from my clients from Central Europe, it may be an industry standard in those countries to write your CV in first person, and then what people have done, they've literally taken that CV, copied it into Google Translate, asked for an English translation, and then pasted it as an English document. And unfortunately, you know, Google Translate is a computer. It's not human. It doesn't understand that some languages, certain words go before other words. It just gives you a black and white translation of that individual word, not the individual sentence.
Okay, so I'll just nail this. So everything's third person, but then when you get down to the personal things about your hobbies and interests, it is appropriate to address yourself in the first person.
Absolutely.
So I might start off. So if I was ever writing a CV, it might say, Bob Spence is this, that, the other, this is, and then right at the end.
Yeah, I wouldn't use my name at the beginning of my profile. I would never put Sheikh Taufique. Have your name. It's got it at the top of the CV. So
Gotcha.
There's no need to use your name. Your name's at the top. So you know, you can delete that one. Sorry to interject there, Bob, but I have come across CVs like that, and it's just wrong, because your CV will have your name, so it will say Bob Spence. It'll have your address, your telephone number, your email address, and then the first thing, Bob Spence is, no, we don't need it. We know this document is about Bob Spence because the heading of this document is Bob Spence. And again, in you know, so it would read, a self-motivated individual who strives to achieve and maintain a high standard of performance, experienced in a wide variety of sectors, mainly in customer-focused environments. So that could be something round about your profile. When it gets to your interest section, it would just read, in my spare time, I enjoy a variety of activities to keep me busy and stimulated. I also work with the Asbiro University, which is blah 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 blah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's quite clear, and that's it. Excellent. Okay, well, so that's one thing that you've noticed that people do. They accidentally promote themselves in the first person, where recruiters read things in the third person. That's really good information.
Okay. The second point I would make is bullet points. Bullet points are exactly what they say, just there to point a bullet to a certain extent. And a lot of CVs, people will put the job that they're doing or the job that they've had, and everything underneath that will be a bullet point. Bullet points are great because they do add value to what you're saying, but your CV should not be a complete document of bullet points. If depending, I mean, I use bullet points under the key skills section, and I use bullet points in the educational section. So I may have a line where the name of the university is there, then the bullet point would be the qualification that you received. Bullet points take away flow, they take away a tone, because again, every time you use I, it's a stonewall. Every time you use a bullet point, it's a brand new sentence. It has no flow to it. So for instance, if you were working in a supermarket, for instance, I'll just use that, your bullet point could be stacking shelves, working on the till, assisting customers. It's no tone to it. It's cold. If you wrote it as a paragraph, my responsibilities in this role included assisting customers with queries and concerns, replenishing stock, and handling cash and electronic payments. So it has more of a feel to it. It's not cold. So the second point, definitely, if you've got more than, if your job description has got bullet points, get rid of them. Some jobs, I agree, depending on that job, may need bullet points to add value to your description. But again, keep it to a minimum. Use no more than 4 bullet points if you are going to use them, except if you're talking about your key skills, or except if you're using it to tell people what qualifications you received from your university, college, or your professional qualification.
That makes a sense, and certainly the feedback about bullet points is very similar to when you're making a sales presentation using PowerPoint, because I often see, especially in investment meetings, people misusing the concept of a bullet point.
Yeah.
So it's similar, the things that you're saying there, Sheikh, very similar to making a sale.
Okay. The third thing would be the type of font that you use. If you turn on a computer, especially a PC, you'll be greeted with a font that is called Arial. You may also be greeted with a font that is Calibri. You may also be greeted with a font that's called Times New Roman. And most people will just stick to that font, write their CV, write their report, write their pitch in that font. So what I do say is change the font. You don't want anything like Gothic or Wingdings, which are just gobbledygook icons. Just change it to a more pleasing to the eye font. I particularly use called Tahoma. It's very, very pleasing to the eye. And again, if CVs are printed off and they're all sat in front of a recruiter or a manager, and he has 10 CVs, all in the same font, they're all going to look like the same document. They're all going to have the same. They're all going to leave the same flavor in his mouth, so to speak. Remember, a catering analogy I like to use is the first bite is taken with the eye. When someone orders food, the first bite is taken with the eye. And the same when someone's looking at your CV. They're going to look at that CV, especially in today's society where we live in a Facebook, Twitter, quite a world. Before it was all, everything was just text, but now we do live in quite a visual world. So if there's 10 CVs put down on someone's desk, and 9 of them are in the 3 fonts that I mentioned earlier, and one of them isn't, the one that isn't is going to stand out. And that's what it's all about. So just look at the font that you're using. Try not to use Arial. Try not to use Calibri, and try not to use Times New Roman.
I think what you've just said there, I've never heard that expression that with food, the first bite is taken with the eye. But that again, it's like with PowerPoint sales presentations. The first thing that you say is how the presentation looks. It's almost like a business card, how that looks. It's more about you than what you're going to say next.
Yeah.
So that's really useful feedback. Again, it's funny you mentioned this because just by coincidence, going through all these 60 CVs, which were for sales roles in London, I reckon half of them had the same font. And it was a tedious thing just to go through. So I'm with you. Same font, bullet points where they shouldn't have been used, opening introduction in first person, communicating information that was a given, like someone saying they've got good communication skills. That came up in just about every single CV. It doesn't have a value, that statement.
I mean, I can understand how people, I need to get this out there. I need to tell people I'm a good communicator. And you can tell people you're a good communicator, but you just need to tweak it. For instance, you may turn excellent communication into an excellent negotiator. So it's just all about the little things, just the little tweaks here and there. What I do is I don't reinvent the wheel. All this information you can get if you dig deep enough on Google, if you read the right books, but where I add value are the little things. It's all about the finer things, the small details. Taking a bullet point away and turning that into a sentence that has flow. Using getting rid of the boring font and, you know, using a different font. So yeah, I completely agree with you there.
Can I just ask something about that's a small thing, but I noticed last week. Do you think it's appropriate to put your photograph in a CV or inappropriate?
It depends on the job that you're applying for. If you're applying for a job in a modeling agency, then yes, put your photograph on there. If you're applying for a job, then, you know, unless it specifically states, please attach a photograph, there's no reason for you to attach a photograph. If anything, you're probably setting yourself up for failure if you attach a photograph. You know, beauty is in the eye of the, is it the beholder? Is that what they say? Or, you know, one man's beauty is another man's ugliness. At the end of the day, you want to be selling your skills, your knowledge, your attributes, your values, not what you look like. I do remember many years ago, people did put photographs on their CVs, and I used to work in the financial services industry, and a lot of the decisions were made on what people look like. But when they came in for an interview, it didn't fit. It was like, look, you've been picked on because you look nice, but you actually don't know anything about the job that you've applied for. So unless you're being specifically asked to attach the photograph, which would be either in a modeling role, or if it was one of the airlines, if you were applying for a job as an air hostess, then yes, send your photograph. But don't put your photograph on your paper CV. If they want to see what you look like, they can go to your LinkedIn profile and see what you look like. So, and you know, that's for LinkedIn. That's how LinkedIn works. But for a paper CV or any other document, don't put your picture on there, because it's not right. It's not proper. It's not an industry standard unless you've been specifically asked to attach a photograph.
Okay, I appreciate that. I know we've probably got about another 5 or 6 minutes of your valuable time. Can I just ask you to talk about one other thing? Can you share with the group, in terms of communicating their value in a CV, can you think of one golden rule to stick with? Some kind of gold standard thing that's absolutely critical that you communicate in your CV. Can you think of one thing?
The one thing that I would say is, if whatever job you're applying for, just make sure that that CV is fit for its purpose. I can't stress that enough. If you're, I just can't stress that enough. Make sure the CV you're sending fits the bill. Look at the job description. Look at what they're asking for. Look at look at every aspect of that CV, and also look at every aspect of that job role, and look at your CV, and almost turn your CV into a tick box. Is that coming across? Yes, it is. Is that coming across? Yes, it is. Is that coming across? No, it isn't. A lot of people take it personally when they don't get the interview or they don't get the job, and it's like, don't take it personally. There's a person and there's a piece of paper. Unfortunately, we're judged on that piece of paper. I know we're taught never to judge a book by its cover, but in CV world and resume world, unfortunately, you are. The one thing that I will leave you with is, it's not the person, it's the process. So if the process, in this instance, is sending the CV or the application form, if that is not singing the value that employer or that business contact is looking for, then you're wasting your time and you're wasting their time. There is a science and there is an art to perfect CV and the perfect application form, but it isn't rocket science. You've just got to look at it like a tick sheet, and just look at everything that your recruiter, your next potential employer, your next business contact is looking for. Look at your document, look at your CV, look at your LinkedIn profile. Is it on there? Is it saying what they're asking for? And if it is, you're onto a winner. If it isn't, then you're just going to be kicking yourself. You'll say to your friend, what's wrong with this? Because he's your friend and because he likes you, they're going to go, there's nothing wrong with it. It's brilliant. You're a great guy. Fortunately, your friend isn't going to be recruiting you. Some guy you don't know is going to be recruiting you. Some person who you've never met. Some person who is going to be judging you on your values and also on your unique values for that job.
Can I thank you so much for spending time with us on this Sunday afternoon? I know that you're exceptionally busy. I'm really hoping you can spend some more time with us in the program next year about CV, because I'm coming across some very, very, very good quality people that aren't packaging their value to the British job market.
Yeah.
And,
you know, I see a CV in Central Europe. If you sent me to Central Europe, I wouldn't have a clue. As much as I'm a great CV writer here, I wouldn't have a clue. And maybe all the values that I'm talking about today and all the points that I'm making today, stick me in Central Europe, they might not make any sense whatsoever. You know, what I would say is, you know, send your CV to a professional person. Yeah, a lot of professionals like myself will give you a free review and say, look, this is wrong, this is right, this is what's coming across when this is what you want coming across. The best way for me to put it to you is, you know, you don't make your own shoes, you don't sew your own clothes, you don't make your own car, you drive a car, you buy clothes, you know, and it's the same with your CV. Don't feel that you have to write your own CV. You know, if anything, you know, send it to a professional. Don't send it to your friends. Your friends love you. That's why they're your friends. They're going to say, no, there's nothing wrong with this. And before long, you'll be having a match over there's something wrong with that company. You need to send it to someone who is completely independent, completely doesn't know you as a friend, is going to talk to you in a professional capacity. And also, you may get some home truths. You may think this person's being cheeky. Why are they saying this to me? I've had it with my clients. I give my clients two options. I can either wrap you up in cotton wool or I can be honest with you. And a lot of them will say, look, just be honest with me. And when I am honest with them, some of them go quiet. And I always say to them, look, don't take it personally. It's not about you. It's about the message that you're getting across. And unfortunately, the message that you're putting across is not the message that that recruiter or that employer wants to read or hear based upon what they're looking for. So don't take it personally if you hear from a professional that this is rubbish, this is wrong, what the hell does this mean? Because, you know, it's a different country, it's a different approach, it's a different way of doing things, and that's just the way it is. I can't change that. You can't change that. We just have to open our hearts, open our mind, open our eyes, and realize that if I want to succeed, if I want to move forward, I am going to have to make some changes whilst I'm in this country.
Well, I really appreciate that. If I can just add one anecdote to that before we ring off, backing up what you've said. About 14 years ago, a group of us were raising some money to set up a call center. So we were raising about £4 million. And the link to this is we had a stockbrokers called Seymour Pierce, very well known in London, Seymour Pierce, that were putting the prospectus together. And four of us were asked to put our CV together on how that should look on the prospectus, how it should look. So it's not quite the same as a CV for a job, but it kind of is. It's a CV for some money. And the feedback that I had on something that I thought had been really well written, so on and so forth, the guy from Seymour Pierce just said to me one word: dreadful. We need to completely rewrite this. How you've described yourself is not fit for purpose to show people why they should invest in this project. And the guy that was saying that, it did feel like a personal attack accidentally, because who wants to hear someone say the way you've explained that, it's just dreadful, it just doesn't mean anything, it's empty, they're just catchy phrases. This needs a complete rewrite. If you're the managing director, complete rewrite. But the reason is why companies employ Seymour Pierce is for that feedback. That was it. We thanks to them, we did raise the money. I don't believe it was because of the right of my CV, but it was the first time I came into contact with someone who did this for a living. and because they were being paid to do it, there was no punches pulled. This is dreadful. We need to rewrite it. We've got about 3 hours. Let me show you what a successful one looks like. And so I can only suggest to people they engage with a third party, because you can't do it on your own. No way.
No. And I understand, completely agree with you with what you're saying there. And I'm going to leave you with two things before I go. One is, you know, CV writers are running a business. CV writers do need to pay their bills as well. But be careful that you do one of two things. One, you don't overpay a CV writer, and two, you don't underpay a CV writer. If somebody's saying to you, give me $9.99, I can write you a fantastic CV, walk away from them, because you'll be paying a lot of $9.99s before you actually get a CV that's fit for purpose. So look at the market. You may think, my God, I mean, I'll be honest, I charge £150 for my CVs, but I've never had a client come back and say this didn't work. Unfortunately, in my business, when my CVs are written, my clients fly. I mean, they will write feedback for me, and you can read that feedback. There is feedback on my website. There's also feedback on a third-party site that I use called Free Index. I think I have something like 26 to, I can't remember how many it is, but they're all 5-star reviews. Some of my clients are in a position where they can't write me a quote because of the types of industries that they work in. They're managing directors or they're head of departments, and they don't want to let people know that they paid someone to write their CV. So get a feel for the market. Don't go for the cheapest, because you know, it is what it says on the tin. It's a cheap CV. But then on the flip side of that, you know, some companies can charge you in excess of £250, £300, and they will keep you on the phone for an hour, and they'll say nice things to you, and they'll send you freebies via email. But you know, don't fall into the trap. It might be a large investment for you, but you've got to look at the bigger picture. What will that investment do? Will that investment open doors for me? Will that investment get me on my career ladder? And if it does, then it's probably one of the best investments you can make when you come to this country. And the last thing I want to leave you with is on the back of what Bob said earlier. There is no failure. There's only feedback. And as long as you take that feedback constructively and don't take it personally, then you're on to a winner.
Sheikh, on behalf of Asbiro, thank you so much for your valuable time, and I'm looking forward to hearing more from you in the new year. And look after yourself. All right, mate? Thanks a lot, man.
That's great, Bob. Thank you very much for the opportunity today. If any of the Asbiro students or Asbiro associates want to get in touch with me, I've set up a specific email address just for Asbiro, which is hello@cvmedic.co.uk. That's hello@cvmedic.co.uk. When I came to see you last, Bob, I know I did a particular special offer where I said I would throw in a free cover letter if any of your students or associates took a CV, and I will honor that again today. So if anybody does want to get in touch with me, please feel free to utilize me for the feedback. Please don't take the feedback personally, and if you do decide to go ahead with a CV, I'll be more than happy to give you a free cover letter with the.
Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of the day, and I'll send you a postcard. Be lucky. You
have a great time in the States, and have a great Christmas, everybody. Have a good New Year, and you never know. We may speak again very soon. Thank you again for the opportunity today. Thank you very much for your time, and thank you very much for listening. I really, really appreciate it.
Thanks, Sheikh. Thank you. Thank you, Sheikh.